Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today I am very fortunate in that I'm on a golf trip in Fuerteventura, so I've got a driving range all to myself. The sun is out, the sky is blue. It's a bit windy, so I apologize if there are sound issues on this one. But basically it's all about kind of preparing for the season. What should you be doing and why should you be doing it? And the main thing really for me at the beginning of a season isn't changing my golf swing. On the contrary, it's all about seeing what my golf swing can actually bring to the table. How far do I hit each club and how much dispersion do I have? Now there's a number of reasons why I want to be looking at this. The first one is just simply, knowing what club you should be taking from a particular distance. So if I'm looking at a kind of a 50-meter shot, I mean that was always a feeling of a kind of a half swing with my lob wedge. Whether it's a half swing with my lob wedge today is something that I want to actually have a look at. And you can see that I've also kind of got my TrackMan out so that I'm actually going to get some kind of objective data. Even on a driving range, it's easy to get that kind of feeling, oh yeah, that was 120 meters or 120 yards, so that was 150 yards. But in truth, the carry was probably 10 yards shorter. And by getting something like the TrackMan out there to actually give you objective data, you're going to get far better idea of what your shot patterns really are and whether they are what you were expecting, whether they bore similarities to last season, or in my case where I'm actually been working quite intensively on my swing over the close season, eventually I'm actually hitting the golf ball a little bit further. Now, obviously practicing in wind isn't maybe the best way to do it. I can remember John Jacobs saying if you've got a left-right wind, then go to the bar and forget your practice because it will get you to try and work against the wind rather than just making your normal swing. But again, with the advances in technology, TrackMan is able to kind of normalize the shots. So although some of the shots will be appearing to be landing right at the target here because I've got quite a big wind behind me, in truth they might have gone straight, and TrackMan will let me know if that is actually the case. So once I've got all these wonderful numbers and all these wonderful dispersion patterns, what in the world am I supposed to do with them? Well, I think there's an awful lot of apps and there's an awful lot of programs out there which will give you a far better idea of kind of the strategy you ought to be developing or adhering to when you're on the round. I think for a lot of hobby golfers, however, it just gets a little bit monotonous, it gets a little bit complicated if we're talking about a meter left, a meter right. And on the other hand, it might just be a little bit too kind of easy to just say, all right, then aim at the middle of the green. I think the first thing you've got to accept is that you're going to have a dispersion pattern not only from left to right, you're also going to have a dispersion pattern in the distance that you're hitting. And obviously the shorter the club, the less dispersion in distance as well as in the lateral dispersion, and the longer clubs it's going to get bigger. It's not unusual to see a 25-yard dispersion pattern from front to back and left to right with a 7-iron. And I'm sure an awful lot of you, when you're aiming at the target, are actually taking your 7-iron and aiming at the target, and the target being the hole. Now, if you have a dispersion of 20 yards from front to back and you're aiming at the hole and the hole's in the middle of the green, then the shots that aren't getting the normal distance are not on the green. And this is where you ought to be thinking about simplifying your ideas when you're attacking a green, of basically ignoring the pin, thinking about how far can you actually hit that golf club, and if you hit it as well as you can, I know it'd be great to be rewarded with the ball next to the hole, but wouldn't it be better to be rewarded with the ball at the back of the green? The reason I'm saying this is you're going to hit far more pear-shaped balls than you're going to hit great balls. And if all your great balls are landing next to the hole and you're hitting 80% of your shots aren't great, then they're nowhere near the hole, if even on the green. So the logic would tend to say you shouldn't be hitting the hole or the flag with your best shots. Your best shots should probably be behind the hole, somewhere still on the green, but allowing your average shots to hit the middle of the green. Does that make any sense? I think what you'll also see if you work on shot patterns is that you will have a tendency. Your tendency is either slightly left or slightly right of where you're aiming. So you should be taking that into account. So if you're thinking of, even when there's no wind and you're aiming straight at the target and the majority of your golf balls aren't actually flying straight at the target, then maybe you should be aiming a little bit left or a little bit right of where you actually want the ball to land. And that would mean that if you put both of these ideas together, you should probably be aiming slightly left or slightly right of where you want the ball to land, and you should be actually aiming long. I don't know if you've played a lot of golf with players, but I don't think you'll actually spend a lot of time looking for golf balls over the back of the green. On the contrary, an awful lot of your shots, to safe part of the front of the green, or slightly right, slightly left, it's very unusual for you to actually hit the ball over the green simply because of the way you're clubbing. And I think Scott Fawcett actually mentioned it in the Decade app, that when he's caddied, even for some college players and professionals, he's been consciously giving them too much club compared to what they think they need. And the advantage of that is that they're hitting the golf ball longer than they actually need to get to the pin, but because he knows they're only really going to hit 10% of their shots as good as they possibly can, then their average shots are suddenly landing all around the flagstick. And this is really something I think a hobby golfer ought to adopt. Try and get away from making the hole the center of your perfect shot. Yes, you will hit a perfect shot, and yes, then you'll be hitting it long and you might be hitting it left. And you'll probably be a little bit disgruntled that you hit it so well and the ball's not giving you a birdie putt. However, if you look at the statistics, around about 80% of your shots aren't perfect, and they are going to be somewhere else other than where you're aiming. And if that somewhere else is where the flag is and where the hole is, then suddenly you're going to be having more par putts, more birdie putts, and you're going to be playing a better score. In fact, the fact is, as soon as you get a better idea of what your dispersion patterns are for every club in the bag, the easier it is for you to make a conscious decision not to aim at the flag and to aim somewhere which is going to give your ability the best chance of getting the majority of balls next to the flag. That means you are thinking of patterns of shots. What is a good pattern? I would say you want to have hit at least 10 shots with each club before you will actually see any kind of pattern, and you want to be doing this on multiple days in the week, in the month, and during the season. And that way you will see any changes in your patterns, and you will have a far better idea of whether you can take the club that you would actually like to take and whether it is the correct club for the shot that you're actually presented with. Sometimes the simplest ideas are the best, and sometimes that just means you going the extra yard, doing a little bit of extra work and getting that information. How far do you actually hit the golf ball? And when you hit the golf ball, how much dispersion does it have, left to right, front to back? And try and get that great shot, not on the flag, behind the flag, and left or right, depending on your dispersion type. Thanks for watching. I'll be back very soon with the next one. Big thanks to all of my patrons for supporting me. And if you would like to become a patron, I'll leave a link. Otherwise, it would be great to support the channel just by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel if you haven't done already. Until the next time, bye-bye.